How is it possible for people to just come into someone's private life and cry poor? Cry war? It's not a war. It's a dependency. Life is about identifying needs and meeting needs. That's like the basis of all involvement. If you make an advance on somebody and you cannot simply keep them intact or improve them, bolster them, be generous, fight for them, right? Add on and improve again, right? Then what's the opposite? That's what law and order's about. If it wasn't the case, it would be unlawful and disorderly on behalf of whoever's implicated and involved. People who bravely implicate and involve themselves and then forfeit their own involvement. So like, they're not making an advance on someone and keeping them intact or having something to offer them or to promote them or provide for them. That's why they find themselves gaining access to people who they can flaunt and flatter, which is like a type of forgery. Why wouldn't people add on if they make an advance on somebody? The word advance versus the word in opposed to vantage. Advance or advantage. To make an advance on someone, yet life's about identifying needs and meeting needs. If they weren't adding or improving or bolstering or boosting, right, they would be found, let's say, forging their involvement. Time is always the greatest indicator, and at what stage do people jump off or simply get off? It looks like dishonest gain. It looks like fraudulent activity. And then you talk about vantage point, from one advantage point to the next, or advantage, parallel disadvantage, or unparalleled advantage, foul play. However you cross over, enforcement in opposed to upholding enforcement procedures or upholding the law. What it is to make an advance on somebody and not identify their needs and meet their needs. There's an old saying, when you come to somebody's house, you come with something to give them. As a reason to come around to the house. You don't need 19 years to forge a relationship to say that you've had nothing. Like, you don't ever get to say, oh, but we really were trying to get around to it. We were in love with him, but then you weren't supposedly. You just make yourselves out to be thieves when you say that. You're setting yourselves up to make yourselves out to be thieves. You don't ever fall out of love with somebody, and you don't hold them at ransom against their will. The word rape is twofold. What it is to rape someone is, one, is to penetrate somebody's physical entitlement without their prior will or consent. And two, it is to seize by theft or to that effect. So it actually relates around theft. Like steal time, money, energy, resources, manpower, intelligence, things like that. Administration talks about raping administration, raping intelligence, insulting intelligence. In an administrative era where we're talking about rape as a raped circumstance, or, where people take a derivated approach to things. They're not keeping things intact. There's a non-authentic article that they use to hinder or obstruct. It's like the sick mind of rapists who, like a collective group even, they don't even fundamentally know what they're doing or committing. If you're that sick and you're committing rape or pedophilia through perverted acts of surveillance and you got the same access to people, you might call it your job or your workplace entitlement, and yet you not even fundamentally sure of what you're doing or committing. It's just your job. But that's what it's like for people who commit rape. They think it's about sex. People think that a person's naked body invites sex. People think that a vulnerable person invites opportunity for predatory. The word forgery actually relates to the word using the Lord's name in vain. It's like taking advantage of a naked person thinking that it invites sex. Or using the Lord's name in vain, living rent-free in somebody's head, or using their life as a shield, like a shield in a hostage situation, or war-type agendas. There's all kinds of ways in which rape relates to. Of course, it relates to seizing by theft or to that effect. What does it mean to conduct oneself properly in the midst of all troublesome weary? Taking it away from those pliable conducts that you might say, well, we know exactly what we're doing. You probably are doing what you're doing, but you don't quite realize or understand the consequences, because some people are just too damn safe. Some people are too precious. Some people have a life of entitlement. People like myself, or a lot of people, don't have quite a luxury of having people like families or entities around them that will fight that will protect them every time they commit a major crime or do crime. How easy it is for people to provide solicitation or lawyers to save them from sentences or charges in criminal indictment and charges and convictions recorded. Therefore, it's like the sense of entitlement is different, and you will know them by their subsidiary. You will know them by their vantage point, or the simple advantage that they have to claim that they're the whole kit, can and caboodle, where really, in essence, they're probably just unprepossessive fundamentalist wannabes keeping at pace with a serendipity. In your case, it's like you feel you have a reason to cry or complain or use it as a form of repetition and conduct to barricade yourself into my life and create a pooled blank space modification of circumstantial evidence that actually it ponders some kind of thought bubble or thought cloud that you ask people to feed into, where it becomes like the showcase premiere of false alibis and excuses to watch something and ponder it, while you typifiably render or formulate some new kind of emotion or attitude that helps to invigorate that very alibi or excuse that watches you through aggravated assault and through provocation, like rape and extortion, in that typical age-old pathological extent, foil the plot or foil the outcome. And that's just what it is day by day. Let's say you identify needs and meet needs. Well, people can't do that. You don't get to say, "Oh, we're in love with him. We had every means necessary to want to, but." You never did. You consistently induced ecstasy. A constant inducement of ecstasy, which is only what you people can do from your vantage point. And you every time raped him every time, because you might mean well, you talk a good line, but you don't live it out in your behavior. You just simply do not step up. It's all in your right mind. But like a soulmate, it's very difficult to have soulmates in your area of network operations. It's very difficult to have soulmates. What kind of rent do I not pay for myself, thus you being here for 19 years? I've paid everything in full a long time ago. The poor guy, like a typical soulmate, sat there for 8 years after the first 11. Or the first 9. He sat there for 8 years believing you'd come along because you kept inducing him. And you kept him on tenterhooks. I wouldn't know anyone in the whole wide world that would be such a sweetheart. Or so believable to spend such time with you in whatever distance relationship it could be. Have a relationship to some effect. Meet you halfway like a spiritual conduct, a soul-driven entity, enterprise, soul-driven individual to ask you to meet him halfway, you know, or ask him to meet you halfway, and then when it comes time for you to have that heart and soul, which sort of like intermeshes itself, you piss off into your mind trying to elaborate fears, and then before you know it, he's forced to come into the heart, where everything starts, a decision, like what the hell, and you just piss off out of your right mind, creating no real decisive outcome. Where you might mean well for somebody, but then you just go ahead and seek consultancy, or have to be forced to tell somebody else, tell the whole world before it even starts. Just spruiking and just telling the whole world, blah, I love him, I want this, blah, 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 blah. And before you know it, you're influenced and you come back and actually affect the outcome. You actually fail. You forfeited your own challenge, which means you shouldn't have actually got involved in the first place, and the poor guy's just there again, like a soulmate, like an embezzlement racket, typical age-old embezzlement racket of soulmates travelling afar to meet people halfway or at some point. Now what happens? They use sexism, they use sexual flirtation and philandering to induce a male in a lot of cases. Males are more targeted than women. Then the men come behind, using them for a shield, using your emotions for a shield, like an investment. Then they rob you, they take everything you got, they leave you high and dry with nothing and nobody to actually believe you. Because it's very difficult in this area. But of course it doesn't actually take away the circumstance at play. Like it wouldn't matter for the life of people left, right and centre what it means to them, because of course it doesn't. You don't sort of come into somebody's life and just play the blame game or have problems. You being the provocator, me being the protagonist, the soulmate. You wouldn't have any. So say, oh, we're in love with him, but. Well, like saying that you made him out to be thieves. You don't hold somebody at ransom either, never having done anything good for him, and say this isn't going to end until you come into our, you come in safely or something, or come see our lawyers, or we get access to you. That's bullshit. You haven't even made a payment. You don't have any friends or family. You don't have any government or gang. You got no friends and family, no gang or government. You've got nothing left. You could have had that, but you did fail. And you did forfeit, and you suckered out. You punked out. You went and told everybody else without keeping things intact. Identifying the need and meeting that need, whatever it takes. It might be an itinerant shortfall for some people working in certain key classified areas or top secret operations. And that's what it is to find people believable who simply believe in you. That's key. I'd be deaf to find too if it means you had to protect yourselves. But at the end of the day, you don't forge your relationship. You don't forge outcomes. You don't forge concentration. You don't forge conversation. You don't forge your frontier. You don't forge your outlay. You don't forge anything. There's no fraudulent activity when it comes to the crunch. If you cannot simply operate, ladies and gentlemen, if you simply cannot operate and you simply cannot afford to be targeted through anyone, even though you did through Adrian Richardson, U.S. Embassy, Canberra, July 10, 2013 at 5:35 p.m. with a Queensland registered vehicle slammed through the gates, right? You probably paid him off with powder, white powder or something, I don't know, right? Then all I'm saying is the way in which to defend you is simply get out of my life. That's what it means. I've got the greater integrity and I'm the greater strength. Now, it's one thing for you not to equip me or place provisions for me, but we are simply not family and not friends. It hurts me more than it hurts you because, like my own biological family or people in my life, for the first 17, 19 years, to have nothing in place for me. Nothing in place. Now I'm going on 38, having spent up close to 19 years with you now, 19th year, and you've got nothing for me. You've done the complete same as what my biological family did to me the first 19 years. You've provided nothing. You've stuffed up, right? You've engaged in sexual, emotional abuse and all kinds of abuse, right? And you have failed me and you've provided nothing. I have to watch my so-called second family or some family which you always reckon, which never happened, just backstab me and sell me out and commit suicide and kick me in my guts and leave me with nothing. So I've got nothing. And the thing is, it's not going to happen. The protocol here is you either pay me and I will manage. It's the most simple translation in the whole wide world. You don't get to ask how much I need, right? How dare you ask someone that? You either pay me and I'll manage, you get out of my life, you do both, or you murk him. You murk me. That's the only three outcomes. That's the fairest outcome in the whole wide world, and there is no other outcome. There is no other fairer platform for all parties involved. I said I will manage. We are not family. We are not friends. You do not have the right to be paranoid or have trustworthy issues when you don't even trust anyone. You don't even put any trust in place or entrust them. You don't have a right to be paranoid or anxious or fearful or fretful or bodge the outcome or blot the allotment or forge any kind of haste and weary against the human arena. People within the realm that supposedly are concentrated to some kind of guarantee or insurance. This isn't about some insurance policy against hell or marking time for anything. This isn't about even stealing my psychology and reverse psychology for you to go onto the world and tell them, oh, we're just going to pay you with psychology. That's like you handing in somebody else's homework in your handwriting. It's very simple terminology and translation. It is the only outcome. All three provide the zest and the qualification for an outcome. You don't have to question my ability to honour anyone. I could give a flying fishco fuck about any one of you. Bravely involving and implicating yourself in my life and then forfeiting that challenge. Like a submission, like a resignation, or a resignation and submission. You people induce and you extract. You have a failed social integration policy before any goddamn war on immigration, and to take your own national provision and kick it in the guts, it wouldn't make a difference for the life of you what it meant to anyone else in the whole wide world. You would be suckered out, found kicking your own national son in the guts for a foreign bandwagon that you don't even know them and you don't even owe them. You wouldn't even know half of it yet. The fact that you're so easily gullible to do that to your own national son for a foreign bandwagon says that you are setting yourself up for indescribable heathenism. You're setting yourself up for the most indescribable evil. Because you either know what you're working with or you don't. Providing process, guarantee. I don't wish to have anyone, involve themselves in my life because I choose not to. The less people you involve yourself with, the less like yous will come along crying rape and crying like a problem. I wasn't involved with you. I don't know you. Right? That's the way it is. Don't you come around here ever stating you never fucking stole my occupation. Australia, the land of occupation, is it? Since you're not the land of occupation, no joke you stole my occupation, no matter how you look at it. Every goddamn day, every goddamn minute and second it ticks by, you stole my occupation. Thus, intellectual property, industrial projects, even policies the politicians go after. I'm a genius. I actually am quite an extraordinary individual. Everybody knows it. However, the key to unlocking all remote guarantee is to just simply believe me. I can't speak on your behalf, but I can speak on my behalf. So therefore, I do not wish ever for the life of me to ever have a relationship with you and be kicked in the guts as hard as I was in the last 30 months. Now we're in February 2017. Ever find myself being kicked in the guts that hard for the sake of whatever, it wouldn't matter. The will of God. What is the will of God? The will of God is your sanctification. It is to abstain from all sexual immorality, and it is to take control of your own vessel. That's the will of God. That is the will of God. Your sanctification. To abstain from all sexual immorality and to take control of your own vessel, yourself. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all things shall be added unto you. Not to ever even applaud or implore spirits or people from any walk of life coming through channels and corridors of yours for the 19th year now to cry poor, to ever give a reason why. If you wanted to be involved, fine, go ahead, but don't ever explain to me. Don't ever give me a formal reason why you would do that. Because imagination is more important than knowledge. I simply don't need to know. We are not friends. We are not family. You are not my government, and you are not a gang. You are unfit people. You are unfit for your role in your organization. You have failed your elder statesmen. You are not me. Therefore, you have just become a mouth affecting the outcome with obstructive theories that go with just mouthing off or showing off or pretending like you've got it all worked out when in essence you act like you know everything. You probably simply do not know anything at all. Why you'd fret off every second and minute that ticks by and claim that you're in control, that is a fraud and a farce to invoke such a theory. To talk about self-determination, which is what democracy is all about, and it wouldn't matter for the life of any other political movement or an opposing country here doing this to me. Australia developed the infrastructure. Australia developed the technology to hone in to people's brains. Australia developed the technology. So Australia probably, did a no-no and sold it to somebody, other country? It wouldn't matter. So therefore, like a responsible people, you are either responsible or you're not. Responsibility starts with correspondence. Correspondence is 24/7. Time is the greatest indicator. You don't need 19 years to ever give a fresh perspective of something that was always there, when somebody's health, wealth, and prosperity is always at stake. And what it means to ever do a bid or go down for the sake of whoever without valid notoriety or valid input. You people would be found to have a plighted imagination and wonky evidence in the face of reality, whereas reality, people are real that live for reality, and people are fake that live in a fallacy. You could be living in a world of disbelief. You could do everything you possibly can to cover your ass and cover your role and your people, and that's grand. That's great. That's wonderful. But the moment you don't step up and act for the wider, greater benefit of knowing that you've done everything you possibly can, right? Then your documentation isn't even worth the paper it's written on. If you accessorize after the fact and you cannot simply provide health and justice for one person, then you are guilty of all of it. It defeats the purpose of running an empire, and it defeats the purpose of running an empire with families involved. If you cannot bring health and justice to one person, you are guilty of everything. You are powerless in your documentation. You are powerless of your active involvement in society to use for any great benefit or gain whatsoever. You wouldn't be found occupying harmonious space or congregational freedom. You would not be found simply limited because of a serious nature that found yourselves guilty and a culprit. falling on your own sword, victim of your own circumstance. If you commit rape and pedophilia or extortion towards someone, it's like asking simply, or being involved in a situation that was out of your control, or somebody was found defending himself. Like the victim's impact statement. When you go ahead and give your victim's impact statement, straight away you might ask, did you resist? I say resistance is futile. Did you resist to find yourselves in a situation where you're in? Crying war, but you don't even accept the conditions. Like a condition of interest. Conditional circumstances. Did you resist? Was it confident? Were you confident? Was it confidential? Or was it simply coincidental? Did you keep it confidential? Or did it coincidentally, did you do it for reasons or concerns outside of the control in which your life operates? Was it a coincidence? Was it were you infatuated in such areas of study? Was it kept confidential? Or did you seek a million pairs of hands to seek justice? Like you're not even fundamentally aware of what you were doing in the first place. Using other people to manipulate and forge their lifestyles and forge your outlay and forge your outcome. By failing your competency level to even operate, to make it look like a second-rate bodge job network or organization. Having perpetrated the crime or perpetrated period, then you go ahead and write and manipulate stories or documentation that suit you, like an editor. Then you go ahead and cash it in for gain, and then you cry poor. No people, country, or anyone can live like that. You can't live like that. I thought you're not even allowed to profit from crime as it is. You say it's not a crime, but it certainly is. If you don't keep it intact, you're a crime. You're a criminal. Anything that takes away the greater dependence of oneself is corruption. So the fact that you're falling apart and kick me in my guts when you don't even have an entitlement to be here, right, is worse than saddening. It's so corrupt. It's beyond comparison to gangs and governments. It's beyond comparison to families and friends. It doesn't give you any special privilege as an organization or a network. You either know how to handle business or you don't. You either can operate or you can't. You either fundamentally know what you're doing or you don't. If you say you didn't know anyone up until whence to do something, then you're guilty of all of it. You don't actually have a case. The case is closed. You didn't know me, right? You weren't focusing on me identifying my needs and meeting my needs. Therefore, you don't know anyone. Case is closed. You don't know anyone. You didn't know me. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. But you have to live with the double curse. The curse of knowing that you are desperate to enact such a corrupted measure of security. A lackluster counterintelligence measure, given your time and commitment, where even that the greatest synergy at play being lawful abode and lawful abide, law and order, doesn't even serve you people well. Right? That no one can actually afford to be part of a gutless company. Because if you had any guts, you wouldn't have to afford anything, ladies and gentlemen. You would simply just have good company. You don't have to afford anything. You just got to have guts, grit, determination, strength, counterintelligence measures, providing the outcome, the defining outcome, process work, being able to process or simply just take the fall, take the heat, confess, honor your mate, honor him, honor Damien, honor him, and don't walk away with it. The objective in life is to tell it how it is. Not to be afraid of people. There's nothing in the whole wide world would give me more pleasure than if you just believed me. I wouldn't be forced to have to say it like it is when you rape and extort the guy through act of desperation and fear. Because I said, yous are desperate. Yous are so desperate. I've never seen people anguish and beg so hard in my life. You did it twice. This is just an after effect, the afterbirth of all your begging and all your desperation and all the corruption that led you to kick me in my guts and kick me even harder when I'm down, when all you had to do was just honor the good man. The one that sees you even in court amending the report saying, I'm sorry, Your Honor, I lied, this good man, I lied. That's all you had to do. You could have just simply walked away. The will of God is your sanctification. It's to be sanctified side by side or just simply processing. The processes, knowing what it is, knowing the good fortune, knowing good people, knowing what it is to deal with things black and white so that you don't have to be dishonest through dishonest gain. The only way is to be honest. If you're only honest every time you give a speech or give a formal address or give a formal statement or a declaration that is legally binding, legally required, right? Then you can never stumble. If you're always honest, honesty being the best policy, you never have to go scrambling for a new alibi or a new excuse. It's just the way it is. Therefore, never be afraid to tell the truth, as honest as it is. You don't have to even have problems coming into my life having a problem. You don't have a right to have a problem. You just would have been found after the fact, a bodge job, because you're saying you might want a job. We just wanted a job. You can respect anybody in any field work of study. But yous are the classic result of the traits of human stuff up. All your mistakes, if it's only yours to give, then it's only yours to take. So whilst you just keep making those mistakes, the key here is that once clutch, like a clutch situation, it becomes one's crutch. And people draw back on their karmas, their time, their money, their energy, their resources, manpower, intelligence. So you just have a peddling crutch affair. You're just peddling your crutch, looking to get off on a crutch charge because you say that it's your job, your studying, your way of life. You just could be some kind of second-rate someone's that made some graphic application, right? An application last century, and you've just been found even to this day fiddling with it, looking for someone to believe in you, get a receptor, right? Just fiddling with your application. You're not the best. You're just a type of people that made an application and need something to shine like a light through your facade to make you look awesome when really you need his weaponry and you need his attention and you need his light to shine through you to make you either look awesome or renderable. Rendering the truth requires a rendition. You have to perform a rendition or practice through rendition in order to render the truth. Whilst that rendition constantly occurs, you people are foiling the plot through a mixed term of alibis and excuses, a mixed bag of alibis and excuses that finds a complacency at stake here for you people, and unfortunate for most. If you ever found yourself talking behind somebody's back through a collective group, that's what narcissism is. Narcissism is when you talk behind somebody's back about them and not to them. That is one of the heart and key, at the heart of all narcissism. Australia now is like the world leading expert in narcissism. You are world leaders in narcissism. You're the world leaders in social predatory, forgery, credit reliant people, whether it's financial or just a mob of wankers. When you single somebody out through selfish, self-centered, selfish rebellion, social predatory, you need wankers to feed each other's brains like a mob mentality. That's what wanking is. Wanking is a mob mentality. You say it in order to receive a merit badge. Like credit-reliant people, you're looking for credit. You actually have forged relationships, forged friendships. Narcissism, social predatory, forgery, wankers. These are the keys to narcissism, where anything that takes away the greater dependence of yourself on, right? Which is like being able to just do your job, sanctified. The will of God is your sanctification. If you were just simply doing your job or your workplace enrolled workplace practice, then you would just be doing your job. If it gets taken away by social matters, right, or using somebody else as a shield or a human shield or an alibi, right, then that's corruption. Anything that takes away the greater dependence of oneself, like just simply doing your ministerial role in government, it is corruption. It is criminal. It is satanic. It is evil. Like narcissism is evil. Like social predatory is evil. Like forgery is evil. Like a mob of wankers are evil. Takes more than two people to wank. Credit-reliant people, heavily reliant on credit. Australia being the most credit-reliant people in the world. The most prescription-reliant people in the world. The biggest gamblers in the world. Anything that takes away the greater dependence on oneself, like just doing your job, day in, day 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, doing your job, it's corruption. Now, what is a corruption watchdog? What is it to cry war but not accept the conditions? What is it to be a mob of wankers above suspicion? What is it to be anyone in any area of accessible, what do you call it? Scruple, or just people of certain moral decoration or reputation, right? And foul the use of operation, foul the use of denomination, foul your accountability, foul your credibility, foul your integrity, foul literally disturbing the concept, the conductivity. Like occupation is occupation, economy is economy. So they're like economy is occupation. It's like that when you occupy your house and you occupy your workplace position. Same thing, occupied status. So like economy. But economy is an astute, mental, purpose-driven conductivity rate. And it's like that with occupation.